Good morning. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads, combined with a little coffee with Broads. Of course, I had a late night last night because why? I was staying up till 3:30, 4 a.m. waiting to see what was going on with Bob Nightingale, Jeff Passan, the MLB owners, the MLBPA. We are this close. We are inching our way closer to baseball. So ultimately, this was strictly going to be a podcast focusing on James Harden and what is his best skill set? What is his best attributes to this team? The best one, the very, very best, the top skill that helps out this team. And I know the answer for sure, but we're going to also combine that with my excitement of feeling that sense of urgency from both parties to figure out this damn baseball nonsense. And I just can't wait because I want to start breaking down what Dave Dombrowski is going to be doing to make this baseball team a playoff team this year. And I know playoffs is what they're discussing, a 14-team format compared to a 12-team format. And there's a lot of drama that's going to keep on happening for the next however many trips back and forth they make. But here we are, and that's where we begin this morning. So with that, before we get going, if you are new to the channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate all of the support. If you're looking to buy tickets to go to any Sixers game to see James Harden live, you can utilize the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off. It is a no-brainer to get yourself to a game today and save yourself $20. And then lastly, over at TikTok, Broads Media, we're incorporating a lot of fun over there. So make sure that you hit the follow button over on TikTok. And yeah, I mean, look, when we get to this James Harden thing, and I know that he does so many damn things well. He's a phenomenal scorer. He can draw contact. He can definitely get you a lot of fouls. When he's drawing those fouls, what's he doing? He's going downhill and he's putting you in an uncomfortable position by basically targeting your chest and saying, go ahead, try and stop me. I'm just going to mow you down. You will not get in my way. I will make sure I get to the rack. And because he's putting the defenders in a position, and that's why I talk about IQ all the time. There's so much to learn in this league, and part of the details that matter so much, and Maxie has already taken such big strides in the right direction with this, it's you got to know how to draw contact. You got to know how to go downhill. You have to know how to make the other team forced to foul you. Like, that's all part of this. So, James Harden, all he does is this, that. No, he knows how to earn those fouls by when he's pretty much attacking you. He's attacking your chest, so you have nothing you can do as a defender, and it's amazing to watch. And you know what? He's fantastic with his step-back threes, and he's fantastic with his ability to create separation when there's a defender that's right into his circle, if you will, and he just, with ease, takes his step back, and he drains it, right? So there's so many areas to his game that definitely is going to help this team improve. But the number one, and this isn't groundbreaking stuff, but I've kind of heard more like a barroom conversation, right? It's not so much you're wrong, you're absolutely off base here. It's more of a barroom conversation. You're having a couple cold ones. You're sitting at the bar. You hear the guy talking Sixers next to you. You turn around. You start shooting the shit a little bit. And for me, look, this team didn't have a primary ball handler that could just make simple passes. Now, you got someone who's way better than just simple passes and just a guy who can hold his own. You got a way better passer than Ben Simmons. You got one of the most intense passers there is in this league. How many times has he bounced past the ball perfectly in the breadbasket of a winger who's pretty much going to the corner, and then with ease, here's a bounce pass right perfectly where it needs to be, and then you get a nice shot off in rhythm, or just the offense kind of gets going from there. And I'm just saying, from a different part of the court, whatever the case may be, just him dialing up the calmness of a half-court set where it's the passing. Now, I don't know if he's going to give you 16 or if he's going to give you 12 every single night. He may. I mean, he averaged 10, so maybe we are in that category. Hell, he's passing up shots so Matisse Thybulle can get his threes. Now, maybe that's part of him just getting here and everyone feeling out the process of what James Harden's going to be like when you talk about those half-court sets and how he wants to run things, where it's like, look, I'm here for everybody else. It's not just me. It's not just the focus that I have on getting points and making sure I take a bunch of shots so we can win the basketball game. I'm worried about making sure that Tobias Harris knows he's still part of this. I want Matisse Thybulle to know that he's still a part of this as well. Everyone is involved and engaged. Be ready, because the ball can come your way anytime. Now, in my opinion, I don't need Matisse Thybulle to be taking threes. I don't need James Harden to be telling Matisse Thybulle, I don't want the shot. You can have it, Matisse, because ultimately that's going to be a failure mindset when the team is in postseason play and it matters the most. James, just worry about you there. Don't worry about Matisse. Only worry about Matisse when he's cutting to the basket, when he's wide open. And I heard a great little story about Doc Rivers, and when he was watching film against what happened in Minnesota, they realized that there were so many chances for him to move off ball, but he just didn't. Whenever a defender just pretty much said, do anything because I'm not even going to pay attention to you. You are so irrelevant offensively that I don't give a damn what is happening when you're on the floor and hanging out by the three-point line. So when the defender just totally ignored him, Matisse Thybulle has to take advantage of those moments and put himself in a position where his defender fell asleep or his defender's getting drawn into a little bit of help defense, and you got to move off the ball. That's when you pay attention. That's when you start focusing on Matisse Thybulle. But other than that, I don't want to hear the good teammate thing. No, be selfish. And there's times where I want you to be selfish, damn it. And that's definitely one of them. But ultimately, he'll probably find his balance as the games continue to go on and they progress as a unit moving forward. This was as sharp could get for the first two games. Not that it was a perfect brand of basketball. Look, that New York Knicks team was scrappy and they were battling and they came back and they were fighting, right? All of this is so very true. But at the end of the day, when you see that James Harden can stop the bleeding when it's necessary, the Knicks go on a run. No. I got you. Even when it's an all-bench lineup plus James Harden. So it's James Harden with these bench pieces of Niang and Millsap and Furkan. And the Knicks go on a push. And Furkan can't even put a pass in the post area for Joel Embiid. What's going to happen? Oh, I know what's going to happen. James Harden hits a step back. James Harden draws a foul. James Harden hits a step back. And that stops the Knicks from believing that they can really do this. Without James Harden being there, it's more run of Furkan Korkmaz. It's more pathetic play and really not enough scoring and not enough actual sense of urgency from a team that can execute very well. And I love the fact that this is just them playing. And that's what it is, honestly. They're just out there. Yeah, I just know a couple of plays. And that's real when they say that. They're just out there trying to play and putting it out and just seeing what happens within flow. And then from there, they're adjust. Sort of like what I just said about Matisse Thybulle. They realized that Matisse was being defended a certain way. Hey, you have to counter that. You have to put yourself in better positions. And then what happened against the Knicks? There were a couple of really great cuts and a couple of really great moments. I will say that Tobias Harris 3, though, that we all loved at the end, even though he had a pathetic, awful night at the office. Matisse Thybulle was wide open underneath the basket. It sort of reminded me almost like a Ben Simmons thing, where he's wide open right there. Put it up, dude. You're literally a half inch away from the basket. Why are you not going up with it? But then he just zipped it to the corner, and Tobias Harris drilled it. So, hey, it worked. It worked. But I'm sure if that shot did not fall, we'd probably all be complaining that, dude, you went to the coldest player on the court, the time where you just had to go up and lay it up or dunk it. Please don't tell me we have another player who's scared offensively and just about the defensive side, even though we already know we have that. And yes, I'm harsh. I get it. I'm harsh. I'm just pointing out the reality of the situation, though. And to kind of get back on point, though, with the main question of the day. And I would love to hear from you out there, whether you're kicking it in the chat room, which the chat room's going nice. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Or there's the Anytime Hotline text messages or phone calls at 856-442-9805. When you look at James Harden and you think about where this team is, what stands out to you the most for the most important skill set that he provides? And there's a lot here. I mean, look, there's going to be possessions where you don't have it going, and it's a bad possession, and the other team has a good defensive stop, but someone just has to break down a defender and get a bucket. That's so valuable to the team. There was no one who could really get their own shot. Yeah, Joel Embiid, but outside of that, I'm talking perimeter play. And yeah, we like Maxie, but he's still a work in progress, and there's a difference when he's on the ball and off the ball, as we all can see. So when you look at a player like James Harden, what is it for you? To me, I mean, they didn't have a primary ball handler. They had none. They had Zippo. They didn't have a real point guard. To me, it's the passing ability and getting players in position. He's not only doing that, but he's excelling to another level with it, and these passes are so damn sharp. And the reason why it benefits him the way that it does, and we can use Ben Simmons as the example, is Ben Simmons was only good at passing. And when you're only good at passing, it's totally different what you can get on the floor compared to when you are a great scorer and you're a great driver and you're a great three-point shooter. When there's a lot of different angles to your game and there's versatility involved, your passing now reaches a whole entire level and opens up way more. And that's why we were stressing how important it is for a defensive player to have to recognize it and stay true to that lockup matchup. They have to lock up that player. And it's different when you don't, when you can back off. You can't run a pick and roll. And I thought that the pick and roll would eventually kind of find its way within, I don't know, maybe a week or two, maybe 2 weeks. You'd be saying, yup, that's it. Within 2 games. And we're already seeing what that action does for everybody else involved. Even if the play doesn't necessarily go to a rolling Joel Embiid, it's Tyrese Maxey in the corner. And Tyrese then can make a great decision. And he'll hit a floater as he's rolling. Or as he's driving straight line, I should say. Dribble penetration, putting the ball on the floor. And then with some defensive rotations, maybe that even opens up another look. But he had some tough floaters that he could drain. He had the one where his momentum was taking him left. And then he almost just floats it the opposite direction of the way that his body goes. It's just hard to even fathom how unbelievable he has gotten at some of this for sure. Oh, we got $5 coming in from Joe. My friend is a Bucks fan and says Giannis is the best player. Do you think Giannis is way better than Embiid, or he thinks Giannis is way better than Embiid? I mean, he's in the conversation. I'm not going to downplay how great Giannis is. And look what he did last year. And you talk about, putting up 50 points in playoff performances and all where, I mean, I can't deny that Giannis is up there at the top of the league. And if somebody has him at number 1, and Joel Embiid at number 2. There's an argument to be made, right? As much as I love Embiid to death, I can't sit here and act that if someone believes that LeBron, who's averaging 29 points per game at age 92, is not still the best player in the league. It's hard for me to say no. No, there's a category of players that are within the same tier, and there's no doubt that Embiid isn't far off. And Embiid isn't far off of Giannis, or isn't far off of LeBron, or isn't far off Steph Curry, because there's other players that are just as magnificent as Embiid and have been doing it, that have the pedigree, that have the accolades, that have the championships. So as much as we love him, and I think he's the best player on the planet right now, but that's my personal opinion. I'm sure if you were a Milwaukee Bucks fan, you would be saying the same thing about Giannis, but it's also fair to say that about Giannis because, think about what we're talking here, right? Now, if he believes he's way better, there's a line here that we have to draw. But ultimately, I got to be fair, Joe. You talk about Giannis. If you think that if your buddy thinks he's the best player, there's definitely arguments to support that. He's not saying Furkan Korkmaz is better than Embiid. He's not saying Shake Milton. He's not saying Chris Middleton. He's not saying Brook Lopez. Right? I mean, he's saying Giannis. It's one of those. That's another barroom conversation type thing. There's plenty of numbers to support each guy. But sure, I mean, we're talking about Giannis here, right? Appreciate the $5, Joe. Thank you so much. With that, we'll go to our anytime hotline. Good morning. You're on Broads Media.
Hey, Broads. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing this morning?
Doing really well. So, yeah, with the Sixers, I'm really excited about what we're seeing the first two games. I've been saying for years we need to pair two guards and a trio with Embiid. All we've been doing, the Sixers, that is, all they've been trying to do is pair like Embiid with one guard and a forward, and it hasn't really worked. You've seen when we brought in Horford, and even before that, like the Sixers just have seemed like they want to build the inside around Embiid rather than trying to create guards around him, and all the problems it caused, and all the in the paint and all that stuff. Like it wasn't allowing a lot of creativity and spacing of the floor, and we're seeing that in these first two games.
You're absolutely correct. I think that's a fantastic point, honestly, where, and I guess their mindset was, and I can't really fault them because who would have thought it would play out this way? But eventually Ben Simmons would have some sort of outside game, which that would be the spacing that you're looking for. But then by year 5, here we are watching him dribble up the floor, hand it off to somebody else, and that somebody else stunk, by the way. And then he just had to hang out in the dunker spot. And you're right, there's no spacing whatsoever. So I'm sure their long-term thought, which I can't necessarily be mad at them for because a lot of players improve, was that Ben Simmons' ability to shoot would then open up the floor more over time. But we just got a horrible hand to hold on to, unfortunately, with that deck.
And also, I also want to say it, like, see, Tobias Harris, all the money that he's making, yes, we're making a big deal about that because of the max contract. But even with that, and I got to say, I'm making a big deal about that for that reason. But even with that, I would still rather him be a 4 because you see so many teams in this league nowadays. Like, for instance, Denver does have Jokic. Milwaukee has Giannis. But their best two players behind them are guards. You know what I mean? And that's what I feel like the Sixers now have is two guards that are the second and third options behind Embiid, and that will do so much better for this team rather than trying to make a forward be the second or third option.
I love it. No, I think that's a great point, man.
And one other problem I do have is I love this team. I really do. But and it was one game versus the Knicks. And did you hear Tim Legler and Perkins saying that's what they believe about the Sixers now?
Yeah.
Well, my only problem is when Embiid and Harden are not on the floor, if we can't create offense and spacing of the floor, we at least have to have defense to stop the other team. We lack both of that from the bench.
Well, this is what I would say to that. Yeah,
we need to have at least one of those because when playoff time comes, no matter how many points combined, Harden scores, Embiid scores, and one of Maxie or Harris, depending on the matchup, I feel like Harris and Maxie will alternate back and forth between 20 points depending on the matchup. But when Embiid and Harden are not on the floor, if we can't create offense, we at least have to have defense. We can't lack both of those.
Well, this is what we would do, and thank you so much for the call. What we would do at that point, and honestly, there shouldn't be a time where Embiid and Harden are off the floor at the same time. That's what, like, if I'm Doc Rivers, we shouldn't be worried about, well, what do we do if we're lacking offense? There should be no reason. There should be no reason. There's no way in hell in a playoff game that I'm not having Embiid and Harden on the floor, one of those two on the floor at all times. And this is when each guy should be logging in 40 minutes a night. So based off of that, and you're talking about resting one of these players or both of them for 10 minutes total each, you got to find a way when Embiid's off the floor for his 8 minutes that Harden is on the floor for those 8 minutes. There's no way, and that's the way that you have to approach it. You got to get contribution all around the offensive side of the floor from one of these two guys throughout an entire playoff game. So there's no excuse. There should never be, and this is no disrespect to Maxie, and this is no disrespect to Tobias Harris as the four guys that we're looking at a starting rotation. But I don't want to see a Harris and a Maxie trying to play a two-man game in a playoff game to score points. Just find ways to stagger Embiid and Harden. It really isn't that difficult to understand. These guys are superstars. To say I demand having one of your two superstars on the court at the same time, that's the way that it has to be. Now, how ironic is this? We're all big Kendrick Perkins fans now, huh? We're all big Kendrick Perkins fans. Never thought the day would come. But this team is legit. And this team has it, for sure. This team has it. This team has a real chance. $5 coming in from It's Your Boy. I'm so happy to watch players like Giannis and Embiid play in the same timeline. Hopefully more fans can enjoy the Stars right now before it's too late. Well, every single era has it, right? I mean, before this, we had the historic run of the Golden State Warriors, which is still kind of, working its way back to some sort of life here and waiting for Klay Thompson to get back to his form that he once was. But before this, we had Shaq and Kobe. And, before that, we had the whole San Antonio Spurs dynasty, even though it wasn't about the sexiest play in the world. It was Tim Duncan, Mr. Fundamental, if you will. But my point is, you can go through every single area of the NBA throughout its history, and you'll find greatness, and you'll find unbelievable. We're watching LeBron James, and I don't know if anyone's ever going to touch the Michael Jordan, LeBron James conversation again. That's outrageous what LeBron James is doing. And you could talk about, he doesn't have as many rings. LeBron James is Michael Jordan territory, and those two are in their own little surface of discussions. And the fact that you have that, and you got Shaq, and you got Kobe, and you got Duncan, you got the bad boy Pistons, and you got everything, man. I know I'm jumping all around, but there's always going to be greatness in this league as a whole. So just as fans of basketball, it's always going to be there for sure. The donations keep coming in. $2 donation from ASMR Me of Everything. Good morning, bros. What a team. Let's go. I think that's perfectly said. What a team. They're enjoying each other so much. Their energy is through the roof. And you can tell that when they hit the floor, they love it. They want to be out there nonstop and taking charges for one another. They want everyone to succeed. They're really pulling for each other. They want someone to cash in a three more than they want to cash in their own three. And that goes a long way. It's because they bought in. And when they study themselves and they look in the mirror, they recognize they have a real chance of winning a championship. So that obviously raises the bar of the sense of urgency, and it makes it more entertaining. We're good. It's a lot of fun when you're a good basketball team and you can beat opponents nonstop. And you know that the ultimate goal can be reached. So, of course, it puts smiles on your faces when you're on a fast break. You hit a layup. Matisse Thybulle's pass is a little bit low, but Maxie somehow gathers it full speed and lays it in, and he's banging the hardwood. Of course. But that's because they know. They've seen it. They've played playoff basketball. And they've seen what playoff basketball is. And then they understand what they have. And what they have can absolutely win some playoff series. And that's why I'll never get behind the idiots out there that go, good luck with James Harden. He's a loser. He's a playoff loser. Look at his track record. All he does is lose in the playoffs. One team wins a year. That means 31 teams lose. Do you know how hard of a percentage it is to be that one? And by the way, going up against a historic Golden State Warriors team where they lose to that, okay, guess what? You lose to that when there's a Houston team that might not have been to full capacity. That doesn't relate to playing with Joel Embiid, with this team, with a different coach in the Eastern Conference, with the way the Eastern Conference set up this year. Just because you don't win a championship doesn't mean you're not a player that's capable. Do you think Charles Barkley was capable of winning one? Absolutely. There are so many players that are robbed of a title because they played in the Jordan era or they played the Golden State Warriors. LeBron taking Matthew Dellavedova to an NBA championship. That Golden State Warriors dynasty snagged some from LeBron's conversation that hurt his legacy in terms of the championships against Michael Jordan. Not the overall one, but to that level, yeah. There's plenty of players that just haven't been able to because sometimes there's elite that gets in your way. But it doesn't mean the player can't and doesn't have a skill set that sits with playoff hoops and NBA Finals hoops, because you can have the talent that can do it, and that's all you can ask for as a fan, right? Do you have a team that is capable of winning a championship? Isn't that what we expect and demand when you enter every season? Are you competitive at the top of the league, and do you compare with the other teams that are filled with a stacked roster? From there, sure, we have to watch and see how it plays out, and context will obviously matter. And how did it happen? Did they shoot themselves in the foot? Did they play poorly? Did they just not perform the way that they were supposed to? Or did they run into a team that was just better, that were just dialed in more, where one guy's dropping 46 points and there's nothing you can do about it, and Steph Curry's hitting shots from the logo, and then you just tip your cap more than you are frustrated with your own team? How does it happen, right? That definitely matters. But James Harden's talent is talent that wins you championships. Whether he gets the job done or not and ultimately wins the Larry O'Brien, that's to be determined. But that you can't downplay his skill level based off of if he does or doesn't. He has it. And if you don't see that he has a skill set that translates to everybody else who wins because of their superstardom, well, then that's foolish. It's very difficult. Very difficult. $5, Philly in 7, coming from Abs. Philly in 7. Okay, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. $5 more coming in. It's going to be the Sixers versus Warriors in the finals, and Sixers win Game 7. Sign me up for that, Abs. Thank you so much for the $10 total in the donations. Thank you. I greatly appreciate all the kind support and your thoughts, of course, on the finals and what it's going to be. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Elliot from Foxborough, Mass. is texting into the Anytime Hotline. For me, it's the accountability that James Harden brings to this team. This is what stands out to him the most. And because we're asking the question, what skill set, what attribute of James Harden is most noticeable when being added to this roster and to Joel Embiid? And Elliot believes it's the accountability. Joel is a great leader, but Harden has this unmatchable maturity, and he makes everyone around him better. There are several times where Maxie or Tobias or even Joel make a mistake, and I think to myself, next time out, Harden will tell them what they can do better. Yeah, I like that too. I think that's a great point, and that's not taking any shots at Embiid or saying that he's not a good leader, because he is too, and this is still part of Joel Embiid being the mature leader. He's grown up big time from where he was 5 years ago to where he is now, but I do think that there's this different element to the way James Harden does his thing. He's a best 75 player in the world ever to play the damn game. He's a future Hall of Famer. Not that Joel Embiid isn't, but there's already that pedigree attached to his name. There's already this huge, huge body of work of James Harden being one of the most elite players in the entire world. That's just been a little bit longer. And when he ends up arriving and you hear the buzz and you see how excited all the news outlets are and the fan base and the NBA world, there's a reason why. It's because you got James fucking Harden, right? There's a big reason why we're stoked watching him walk through the tunnel with a cup of coffee in his hands, and we start fainting and sweating in excitement because there's just a different vibe that surrounds us, the city, knowing what type of impact he brings. And just that vibe. We talked about a black cloud that surfaced the Camden facility when Ben Simmons was still here, where it's the same example, but it's the complete opposite, which is it's not a black cloud that's following. It's the big sunshine. It's a big, huge sunshine with rays just blasting, and the clouds are moving away and the sun is coming up, right? That's what it is for Harden, and I think that there's a different level. Matisse Thybulle listening to a Harden, shoot the ball. A Niang, shoot the ball. I don't want you dribbling anymore. Shoot the damn basketball. And what happened in Milwaukee before the All-Star break after a couple tough sequences and a couple tough possessions for Niang? He ends up taking 10 threes and knocking down 5 of them and was a huge part of the reason why they were able to win the damn game against Giannis, and he put on a great performance. So, I agree. I do like it's like Embiid was a really good leader, and he was definitely getting involved with this new era of him, getting double teamed and then saying, hey, Matisse, I need you to take those threes when he's getting doubled and finding some of his teammates. And he was definitely leading on and off the floor. I don't want to take anything away from that, but add even a talent like Harden, and now you have 2 of those guys, and maybe someone who's just a little bit more mature than Embiid is in Harden. And I agree. I think that's a great one, Elliot. I can't agree more with you there. It seems he's always vocal, always talking, and there'll be some communication uh-ohs, if you will, but that's going to be worked out, no doubt. Everyone saw the play of him somewhat looking at Danny Green after an inbound play, and he starts going, what the hell is this? He's got both of his hands up, where this is game 2, and he's already not satisfied with something. What are you doing? This is not what we do. Even though he also admitted that we're not even running anything, and it's just we're out there trying to see what we have, and then from there, we'll make our adjustments. I love that. We'll just see what we have. Oh, yeah, we'll see. I mean, you have a lot. You have a lot. I'll tell you what also has a lot, and that's Windview. Windview is the greatest app in the world. It's an app where you answer questions about the games before it begins, and there's live contests as well, and you get to play against other people, not the house. So it's not betting against Vegas and just picking a spread. You answer questions about the game, and you're playing 1v1. And if you answer more questions correct than the other person, then you win the pot. So let's utilize tonight's game against the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks as an example, so I can tell you what type of questions there are. Will Jason Tatum outscore Trae Young? Will Kevin Huerter make 3 or more three-pointers? Will White record at least 5 assists in the game? Will any player record a triple-double? Who wins the game? Will Gallinari make more field goals than Bogdanovich? Will either team commit a technical foul? So these are the type of questions that are asked, and if you answer them correctly more than your opponent does, then you win the pot. And there's a deposit bonus right now that's happening, where if you deposit 50, you get 100. If you deposit 100, you get 200. The link is down below in the description. Windview.tv/Broads. It's a fantastic app. It's a very creative way to get involved in watching and viewing games. It brings your experience to the next level. It will help me out tremendously. Download the app, Windview.tv/Broads. The link is down below. There's free contests where if you just want to get your feet wet and see what it's like playing for free, you can do that, and then ultimately, find yourself putting some money in. And I can't stop. It's all I do. I am absolutely addicted to it. So definitely check that out. Broads, you're sick. What's up, Kevin? What's happening? Heading down to the Wells Fargo tomorrow and March 10th. I will be there tomorrow as well. This team's addicting. I've been looking at the calendar for regular season NBA games. What the hell is wrong with me? And I think that's a perfect example of where we're at now. This team moves the needle so much. And to be fair, Joel Embiid alone did this. Joel Embiid by himself has put us in a position where he's at an MVP rate, and I want to watch him drop 50 against Orlando. I want to watch him drop whatever the case may be. Let's say 42 against a horrendous team in the Atlanta Hawks, right? I don't care who the team is because Embiid was playing that special. Now multiply that by 7 billion, and I have that type of feeling against this terrible list of teams too, the New York Knicks or whatever team comes our way next. Now, I know that there's going to be a good stretch that everyone's looking forward to, which is a Cleveland, a Miami. And also keep in mind, though, that you're playing Cleveland at home and you're playing Miami on a second half of a back-to-back. So if it looks clunky or it looks different and it doesn't flow as well as you might like, there's a lot of variables here to this, and they're going to lose a basketball game. And they might lose a basketball team basketball game to a team that you would like them to beat, and they might lose to a team that you think that they should beat, and that's just the nature of the regular season. So I'm just preparing everybody mentally to understand that a loss in the regular season is okay, that an ugly game where maybe the offense doesn't flow as good and the pick and roll isn't as pure, and maybe Maxie isn't as open as we would like him to be, and things aren't as wow as they've been the first two games. It's okay, and that's bound to happen. They set the bar so high, and they got shot out of a cannon so great that now, I don't want the expectations to be that there's never going to be hiccups, or there's never going to be uncomfortable stretches, and there's never going to be bad quarters, or there's, what I mean? Like, there's never going to be a time where Harden has a bunch of turnovers and Embiid's getting doubled and he can't get the ball out properly. That is 1,000% going to happen, and don't overreact if that happens on a second half of a back-to-back after playing Cleveland one night in South Philadelphia and going to Miami next. Although earlier this season, they did have a back-to-back scenario that they did extremely well on, where Miami was a part of that, and they played the Boston Celtics and did damage, and then they played the Miami Heat and won, and that was a very important part of success. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just making sure that everybody understands, yes, we are in a new mentality of regular season games, and it's so entertaining. But don't make this a playoff regular season, because it's not a playoff format right now either at the same time. Well, that's true, Ryan. The zone is no longer a part of what destroys this team. Before, you had zero opportunity to break a zone. And I think that that's a good point to bring up, where, you've seen Miami run it in the past. And if you try it, guess what? You have someone who can actually break that down and score buckets and drill a bunch of shots. You have a shot maker, a big-time shot maker. And sometimes there's more than just big shots at the end of the game in the fourth quarter with the clock ticking down, and there's 12 seconds to go, and it's a one-possession game, and James Harden dribbling the clock out a bit at the top of the key. He's waiting for a screen, right? I'm walking through this in my head as I close my eyes on how I could see it play out. There's a lot more to just big shots at the end of the game. There's big shots to stop a run. There's big stops that allow Doc Rivers to keep his timeouts, because on the floor in the second quarter of 15-2 runs occurring, but then James Harden gets 3 straight buckets or 3 straight attempts to put points up on the board, and that stops Doc Rivers to having to call a timeout, which then factors into having a timeout later before the half ends. Or maybe you can utilize that same example in the third quarter, and Doc Rivers keeps one of his timeouts, and then in the fourth, it's still a one-possession game, and now you get a different opportunity to draw a play up and stop the game where you would like to, and then have a great chance to get a wide open look the way that you would like to, instead of having to go more on the fly without any sort of direction. Not that that necessarily always helps. I don't know if you heard Danny Green. This was a while back on one of his podcasts, but he actually brought up that there's so many times, it was him and Tyrese Maxey talking on the green room, or inside the green room, or whatever his podcast is called. And he was basically saying, oh yeah, there's so many times where Doc Rivers draws something up, and then we have a defensive possession first, and then by the time we get the ball on the other side, we all forget what we're even running. And I'm going, you're admitting that publicly? You're actually saying those words out loud, and you're telling that to the public, and they're all laughing about it. And I'm sure maybe this is real in the NBA world, and everyone knows what they're talking about, and they're kind of chuckling. But what? You're telling me you're in the NBA, you're a professional basketball player. Your job is to understand what play you're going to run at the end of the game after Doc Rivers calls it up. And because of one defensive possession, you automatically forget, and you go, oh shit, we got to do something here. I mean, does that kind of describe that? That's not a Doc Rivers problem. That's a player's problem. That's a player's problem. I couldn't believe that that was even stated. And it was. And to be honest with you, it was somewhat overlooked. But I guess with Danny Green, there's so much crap that flies out of his mouth, it's hard to catch on to everything. And maybe that's his goal, because we know he's trying to get into some national media stuff. And after some of the takes we've been hearing on Fox Sports, this is why I don't watch that crap. And I know everybody knows what I'm talking about, but I don't even want to give them the time of their day. But you just want to keep spewing garbage, then whatever. Anyway, to the phones we go. Dan in Coatesville, you're on Broads Media. Good morning, Dan.
Yo, bros, what's up? Good morning. Love watching. You do a great job.
Thank you so much, man. What's happening?
So, how mad do you think the teams are that passed up on Maxie?
Yeah, I would say that they're pretty disappointed. And you got to keep in mind that there was no March Madness that year. And if he played in March Madness without the whole COVID thing, because the COVID stopped the tournament, he probably would not have slipped as far as he did, and he probably would have made a lot more noise.
Yeah, and his speed just complements Harden and Embiid so well. I love watching it.
His speed is so damn electric where, I mean, one, he might be the fastest player in the entire league. At least he play. I'm not, maybe not like straight line wise, but he plays definitely super fast. And it's such a change of pace. It's so hard to dictate what's going to happen when you're a defender. When Joel Embiid can post up and play his pace, I would say Harden plays at a professional pace. That's the way I would label it. And then Maxie's just shot out of a cannon. What do you do?
Yeah, and he worked on his shot. You could tell he's becoming a really great shooter.
He's worked on his shot so much that he has now doubled his amount of 3 attempts per game. He's now hit at a 9% higher of a clip, 10%. He went from 30 to closer to 40, and he's drawing fouls more. He's getting to the line double the amount of times. Every area of his game offensively has improved. Wild concept, isn't it, Dan?
Yes, it is. And I think this next game, that's cool you're going to the game. That's awesome. I'm going to keep an eye out for you. But I think Harden's going to be trying to feed Toby and get him started, get him going. So I'm going to be looking for that to happen this next game.
Probably. If he's going to sit there and tell Matisse Thybulle to get some shots up, he'll probably be saying the same thing to Toby as well. Which, look, I mean, I don't want to live with Matisse Thybulle threes. I could understand trying to get Toby going a bit more than Matisse Thybulle offensively, because you could keep telling him shoot all you want, but that's horrible because the other team wants that every single possession. Would love for Matisse Thybulle to take threes. With Tobias, yeah, they'll probably live with it right now due to him not excelling at the best rate ever. But if Toby gets more into rhythm, we've seen a 5-week span of him earlier this year before the All-Star break of him being a dog.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine. He's way better than this.
He definitely is. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. There are phone lines open if you want to climb in at 856-442-9805. I've been pretty vocal on where I'm at with Tobias. He's the easy scapegoat. He gets all the blame when everything goes bad. And even after a big win, it's in his direction, and he stinks, he's awful, he's pathetic. They have James Harden and Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. They have James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey. You want to focus on Isaiah Joe not playing over Furkan? You want to focus on what? Willie Cauley-Stein over Paul Millsap? You want to argue about DeAndre Jordan? Like, you want to talk about this? Or do you want to talk about what these 3 guys, and then Tobias Harris too, who will be better than that? I guarantee it. He won't be 3 of 9 every single damn game, or 2 of 9. I want to focus on what Maxie can do, and Harden can do, and Embiid can do, because the combination of those 3 players can bring you a championship. That's what I know, and that's what I'm going to focus on. That's the problem with the world these days, is you could have 9 things that are going very well, and then there's one thing that's maybe not holding its end of the bargain, if you will, and you're going to put all the emphasis there. Now, there's reasons to point out the deficiencies. There's reasons to point out the struggles. It's not, well, you can't ever bring it up and you can't ever criticize him, bros. That's asinine. I'm not saying that. Obviously, I'm open to the discussion, and I'm open to bringing up what needs to get better and where he needs to kind of fill himself in this team. But it's also not enough of a sample size to fully understand how to play with a new primary point guard, where I'm allowing it time to work out. I've seen a lot of shots that I like and a lot of wide open looks that it's happening just based off of the general spacing. And I feel over time, those same exact looks, the only difference is going to be execution. He's going to drill them. He's open. They're wide open. There's times where I don't like when he dribbles, and I don't like when he puts the ball on the floor, and that will come with understanding his looks that he's going to get with James Harden on the floor. But I think the difference right now is just quantity. How many shots and how many possessions and how many times he's getting the ball on some of these shots, and understanding that this is going to be my look. This is going to be when I get the ball. These are the spots. So there's no double guessing. There's no dribbling. There's no wondering. There's no backing down my defender and going in the post. Because quantity of minutes, the amount of minutes playing with Harden, he then realizes this is what we're going to get. This is going to be my shot. And that's when he gets into trouble. He overthinks. Less thinking is more. So it's okay to bring it up, and it's okay to focus on some other areas with this team. But for me, all around, I'm more just analyzing the special parts of this team at the moment because I know that it can go a long way. All right, back to the phones we go.
Damn, Birds, I'm sitting here 1 o'clock in the morning, brother. And, man, 12 hours from the game, man, I'm still just as hype about how the game went, man. These guys, man, it looks good, man. I know we're 2 games in, there's a lot to do, man, but, man, do we look good. I'm going to tell you something, man. You know, even with a bad game from Tobias, man, Maxie stepping up. And you know the games that maybe Maxie might not be playing good, which hasn't been often for the kid, Tobias should hopefully show up. And, man, I'm going to tell you something that hasn't been talked about enough. The cut game from Thibault, from Matisse, man, he kept cutting. He would line over there on the wing, and then he would cut real fast to the court. I think it was 2 or 3 times. The announcers finally started saying something about it, man. Dude, this is a good young team. The fact that we didn't have to give up Maxie or Thibault in this trade for Harden, man, it's awesome. These guys are young, talented kids who are going to grow up with 2 superstars in front of them. And let's go get this chip, man. No bullshit. Let's go get this chip.
I love the energy. I love the thoughts, and I'm right there with you in terms of Maxie. Look, Maxie would be good no matter where he played. There's no doubt about it. If he was playing with Garland and he was in Cleveland or he was in Orlando, he would be making noise and flying around, and he'd be exciting, and the league would be talking about him. Maybe not to the same level they are right now, but I do like the point that you brought up that when you get to study and see this from the I guess you can use Aaron Rodgers as an example. When you're sitting on the bench and you're watching Brett Favre, and that doesn't mean Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have been great in another team, in another organization. He still might be Aaron Rodgers by the time it's all said and done because of his skill level and because of his the way that he's wired as an athlete. I'm not ruling that out, but there's just validity to seeing one of the best to ever do it and watching and analyzing in film room and film study and just learning those details, those little details that we call little. When you add them all up and there's 50 little details, it becomes one big full detail. And that's the difference in reaching that next step and put yourself in that next tier in the NBA, because there's a lot of guys that are big and there's a lot of guys that can shoot the basketball. But what separates you from those players, and what do you have to focus on to get you there? There's no doubt that a Tyrese Maxey getting to spend his first couple of seasons in the league under Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell, and say what you want about the rotations. Let's talk about the actual part of the teaching side. Embiid, massive part of his success is being able to be coached a little bit differently. And I wasn't the biggest Brett Brown hater in the world, but when you're with Sam Cassell and Doc Rivers, there's a different level of professionalism and understanding of the game based off of their history and their playing days and what they went through. So that's part of the mentorship and learning from other people who have been involved in the trenches. So Joel Embiid gets a little taste of that. And then Maxie gets a taste of that with Embiid and Sam Cassell and Doc Rivers and James Harden, where, yeah, you're right. You think about having that compared to just playing in Orlando and saying, go have at it, have some fun. It's a totally different learning experience. And I love that. Daryl Morey did so much, so damn much, getting rid of Al Horford and getting rid of Josh Richardson. It's not just the ability to snap his fingers and acquire James Harden after playing the waiting game. And that's not fair to say, to snap his fingers and get it. It took some time, and he took some heat, and he took a lot of criticism from not only Sixers fans, but a lot of national media people as well. Just get the job done. Just trade him. Just get rid of him. And then those same people somehow hated how he acquired James frickin' Harden in return. It really is one of the most hypocritical things I can remember was the flip-flop of feel from the national media. Not only with that, but the Ben Simmons thing as well. It was just a mess how all of it was handled. But at the end of the day, the Sixers got what they were looking for. And I feel that another part you brought up, if Tobias Harris has his night where Maxie somehow doesn't have his, that's why I call them the 3A, 3B. Right now, for the first couple of games, it's been Maxie as the 3. But there could be a game where he maybe doesn't shoot very well and he goes 2 for 10. And it's just not his night scoring the basketball. But Tobias gives you more of a 5 of 12. And he picks it up a bit, maybe gets to the free throw line a couple times, but also drains 2 threes, and they're big-time threes. And, I don't want to overlook, by the way, what Tobias Harris did to make that last 3 that started a major, major burst for the Sixers. We're just overlooking that? Are we overlooking that? We shouldn't. Now, I'm not going to tell you that justifies everything. It doesn't justify everything. That's a huge shot. That's a big bowl shot to take, especially when you're ice cold. That's a big shot. I don't know if anyone just gets that one. Because if you, let's say, in a hypothetical world, that's Matisse Thybulle, who misses, in a hypothetical world, of course, misses 4 threes in the game. And that's his 5th. Wide open for 3. Fourth quarter, you need him out there for defensive purposes because you're lacking that area. So he's out there. He's defending on the perimeter. He's wide open. Does Matisse Thybulle, 1, take that shot? And if he doesn't that wide open, he ends up passing it back into traffic. That could be devastating. Or does he brick it? That was a big 3. And so was Maxie's, too. That sidestep. There's an argument on Twitter. Was it a step back? Was it a sidestep? Okay. If that, once again, if that's what you want to complain about, okay, you can complain about that. I'll just look at the greatness of the shot. And it's the fact that James Harden, Joel Embiid's out there, and the kid wanted it. The kid said, now it's my turn. It's my turn to shoot the damn basketball. Isn't that amazing? It really is. Now, there is a part of this show that I opened up with baseball, and I just want to check on what's happening in the baseball world because there is some back and forth and back and forth. And back and forth. I mean, we're talking about watching the owners walk and Rob Manfred go back and forth between these houses. Okay, we got 6 minutes ago from John Heyman. Restrictions to the shift, a pitch clock, and larger bases were all brought up. However, hard to see anything like that as a deal breaker where there are billions to divvy up. So we're basically in the same exact position as it seems that we were last week. Yeah, we're talking about base size when they got to make sure they figure out the CBA, like the major parts of the CBA. We're talking base size. If we're talking that while you don't have the most important pieces lined up, then what are we doing here? Let's talk about the playoff format. Let's talk about the money side of things. Let's get all that dialed in. Then we can talk about the base size. Come on, baseball. It's a joke. It's a joke. Here's the type of shit that pisses me off. Let's get the real details figured out. And then you can start worrying about the little things that you want to dive into. It's an embarrassment. But anyway, I guess I don't want to spend too much time on the things that bother me. I'd rather focus on the things that make me happy. And that's the Philadelphia 76ers.
What's up, bro? It's Elkai at the games. I just wanted to say, and I'm going to say it again, it's just amazing. Well, I wanted to say the biggest beneficiary from Harden coming is it's Embiid, but it's really Maxie, man. It's just amazing. I told people, like with Maxie's ability and combo guard ability, Harden being there at the point really, really makes him versatile, bro. It's going to make him grow as a player. As a guard, and you can just see it throughout these 2 games. His IQ was rubbing off on him, and the spacing that gives Maxie, and it gives him, and the spacing that gives him enough space to use his speed and his burst ability to the rim, and to get the defense staggered is just amazing. And I just want to tell people, just look out, man. Just look out. I said it before, and I'll say it again, and I knew it, man. Maxie's just going to grow from this opportunity, bro.
He definitely is. Maxie's a stud, and I actually like him playing off ball more than on ball, but that's not a hot take or anything. We knew that he was somewhat getting thrown into the fire. And think about this. Tyrese Maxey was just a off the ball type of guy, right? Like that's what he was supposed to be. And then we said, okay, we don't have a point guard. We need you to be one. And think about how much growth he's shown with that. In the NBA, yo, go play NBA point guard. Here's the ball. And oh, by the way, Joel Embiid's playing at an MVP rate, so make sure he gets his. Not just play freely. You got to focus up on what you do. We're playing with Joel. You better make sure Joel gets the ball, right? And I'm sure they didn't scream at him and this and that and get into his face and say that. But I'm just saying, I'm sure internally, when you get the basketball at that age and you see who your teammate is, you think to yourself, I definitely have to look at his area when I dribble up the floor because I want to make sure Joel is happy and getting his shots and we're putting ourselves in a position to win. So I'm sure that's how he was thinking. So here this kid is. Here's the NBA. Have fun, Tyrese. Think about how many areas he got better at while incorporating being a primary point guard in the National Basketball Association. It just doesn't make any sense. And that really is a defining moment when you sit back and just look at that. Look at that from a distance. What? He got sharper in every area while learning how to play point guard. Do you know how hard it is to learn that position and play that position? It's insane. Think about the matchups you have each night. Who you have to play on the other side every night. There's so many powerful, lethal weapons. You have to outperform and outduel them. Insane. But him off the ball just does him wonders to not have to focus on setting everybody else up. The game comes to you differently when it's more reactionary and more instinctual. There's a difference between instinctual and then in your mind, it's I'm point guard. Now, someone like Chris Paul, the instincts are to be the point guard. Same with James Harden. The instincts at this point is to get 10 assists, 11 assists, 12 assists. Sometimes just have that in there. You just have it in your brain, and that's what makes you that natural leader and that natural floor general where it is your instincts. But when that's not what you're accustomed to playing and that's not your number one slot, well, then, yeah, it's not as instinctual. So when you're off the ball, you get more into your comfort zone when that's what you're accustomed to, and that speed is just take advantage of that speed. And Maxie has just, man, I'll tell you what, he is a ridiculous piece to the puzzle, and he is so much fun to watch. And I mean, it's the smiles on the face. And you know what? We talk about Harden, and who was it? It was Elliot from Foxborough, Mass, who texted in because we're talking about James Harden's skill set that pops the most and has the biggest addition to this team. Now, he's got a lot of attributes that are amazing, but what stands out to you the most? And he brought up the leadership, and that's definitely true. I brought up just the fact that you now have a real point guard, and it's the pace of the game that you now play with because of him. Even though great shot creator, amazing three-point shooter, big balls for the last second shots, all that. All of it matters, but what stands out to you the most? And we talk about leadership with Harden. And I think one of the things, this is more Maxie though, one of the attributes we talk about is speed. We talk about his free throw attempts now, and that's starting to double. We talk about his three-point shooting getting better and his ability to let it fly without any hesitation. My point is there's a lot of on-the-court things that we're just so damn giddy about when it comes to this young kid in Maxie. But one that is somewhat of an untouched, or it's something that you can't really label on statistics is he's the younger brother. And there seems to be, while Embiid leads in one way, Harden leads a different way. He somewhat slows the game down and makes it more of a professional offense. Maxie's little brother energy and the way that the whole entire team rallies around this kid, dominating games the way that he does and scoring 20 points the way that he does and hitting that last shot, that step back or that side step, whatever you want to call it, and drilling it and banging the court and all of it, and the way that this crowd, when it's a home game, rises up, something you can't really put your fingers on statistically in a box score or feel it out in terms of a number based, but there's something to be said about what he brings from a little brother energy, and that's what I'm going to call it, that really does stay true to this team's identity. It's a major part of the identity, a major part, not just a little, and it's somewhat flirted in there. I'll give you an example. George Niang. George Niang is an energy guy. His energy is more of a minor part. It's not a major part of the identity. It's a portion. If we're thinking about a pie chart in our bench, which is very limited, he's a portion of that limited bench, and he does bring a spark, but it's not about the true overall life of what this team is about and the mold of what it is. Tyrese Maxey's energy, though, is. And I don't know if you're close to the same team without that. It's a major part of the chemistry involved in how much they love playing with one another, and that definitely does go a long way. And with all that being said, I want to thank everybody so much for hanging out with me this morning. This was obviously, as always, when we do our morning shows, presented by Windview, windview.tv/broads. The link is down below in the description. It's a phenomenal app. It brings your viewing experience to the next level, where you have an opportunity to play against other people. You answer questions about the game before it begins, or there's some live contest as well. And whoever answers the questions correctly, more questions correctly, you win the pot. It's absolutely phenomenal. Check it out, windview.tv/broads. If you're new to the channel, smash the subscribe button and hit that thumbs up button as well. TikTok, Broads Media. Do not forget about that. I'm going to keep my eyes out for some baseball, because baseball is hot in the streets today, and we need to make sure we get ourselves a season without the MLB canceling any sort of opening day game stuff. So keep your eyes out for some baseball discussion if something does break later on today. Thank you guys so much. You're the best in the world, and I will talk to you all next time.